200,000 people are about to flood the streets of downtown Long Beach. The grandstands are already bolted into the sidewalks on Pine Avenue. The concrete barriers are going up along Shoreline Drive. And while everyone in the city is focused on the race, the Supreme Court just rewrote the tariff rulebook and gave the port a new set of problems that it hasn't fully solved. Mortgage rates reversed course and hit their highest point since September. And a $150 million apartment complex broke ground 2 blocks from where the cars are going to be running. That's April in Long Beach. Every one of those stories hits the real estate market in this city differently, and we're breaking all of them down today. Most real estate content on the internet treats the housing market like it exists in a vacuum. Rates move, prices adjust, inventory changes, but nobody ever explains what's actually driving any of it in the city that you live or you're thinking about moving to. I don't do that. This is a hyper-local, data-driven breakdown every month of what's happening in Long Beach and what it means specifically for buyers, sellers, and investors in this market. Today, we have 5 stories. The tariff situation is first, because what happened in February wasn't the relief it looked like, and the April picture is legitimately messy. Then, the rate reversal, because spring looked promising 6 weeks ago, and March changed that story in ways buyers need to understand before making decisions. After that, the downtown build-out, specifically the portico development and the amphitheater, and what a massive supply injection does to the 90802 condo market. The Grand Prix is in there too, because it's not just a race. And we're closing with the actual numbers, because some of what the data's showing contradicts the headlines. There's a link in the description to grab the free Long Beach guide. That's your starting point if you're thinking about making a move here. Story 1, tariffs. On February 20th, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that the administration exceeded its authority in using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose tariffs. That's the ruling that most people saw. The IEEPA tariffs, the ones that had been generating more than $30 billion a month for the federal government and adding an estimated $1,700 per household in annual costs, were struck down. And if you watch the March breakdown, you know how much of that burden was landing on Long Beach specifically. Logistics companies on Long Beach Boulevard frozen on hiring. Order volumes down 35% and staying there. Port CEO Noel Hasagaba spending months repeating one word: uncertainty. So they're gone now, except they're not. Within hours of the ruling, the administration issued an executive order imposing a 10% global tariff under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. That law has been on the books since 1974 and has never been invoked. It allows the president to impose temporary import surcharges of up to 15% for 150 days to address what the statute calls large and serious balance of payment deficits. Those new tariffs took effect February 24th and expire July 24th, 2026, unless Congress extends them. The administration has also indicated it may raise the rate to 15%, though as of the end of March, that increase hasn't yet taken effect. And that's before we get to the Section 301 investigations. On March 11th, the U.S. Trade Representative launched new investigations into roughly 60 economies, including most major trading partners. Section 301 is the legal track that could eventually produce permanent tariffs on specific categories without a 150-day clock. California and several other states have already filed suit arguing the Section 122 authority doesn't apply here. Courts are still sorting out the $100 billion plus in IEEPA refunds owed to importers. As the port CEO put it, the only certainty is more uncertainty. Here is where this lands for Long Beach real estate. The businesses in the port corridor are still in a holding pattern. You don't hire, expand, or sign a lease when your cost structure might change again by July. A finance professor at Cal State Long Beach told the Long Beach Post that current tariff levels are not expected to significantly impact port trade volume, and on the volume side, that assessment appears accurate. The port moved nearly 850,000 containers in January and projects one of its top 5 years ever. But volume at the port and income for the businesses and workers surrounding the port are 2 different things. The income side is still stressed. For buyers in the $700,000 to $1.3 million range, which is where most of Long Beach transacts, household cost pressure hasn't lifted in any way that you would feel. The math on an $825,000 home at 6.4% interest, it's already tight. Layering ongoing consumer costs from tariffs on top of that, even at 10% rather than the prior rates, just makes a stretched budget more stretched. July 24th is the date to watch. If the Section 122 tariffs lapse as scheduled and no replacement follows quickly, some of that pressure lifts. If Congress extends them or Section 301 tariffs layer on top, it doesn't. This is going to shape buyer confidence in this market through Q3. I'm Beatrix Whipple, owner of the Whipple Group, longtime Long Beach resident, realtor, athlete, and sourdough aficionado. If you want to learn more about Long Beach and what's actually happening in our real estate market, make sure to hit subscribe. And if you want a neighborhood-specific breakdown of where the best opportunities are right now, the free Long Beach guide is in the description. It's free. This is a full picture of this market in one document. So that was the tariff picture. Now, let's talk about April itself, because something is happening in downtown Long Beach that no spreadsheet is going to capture. April 17th through 19th, the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach runs for the 51st time. 200,000 people are going to come to the city. More than 2,400 concrete blocks are already going up around the 1.97 mile, 11-turn street circuit, 14 grandstands. The cars will be running through the heart of the downtown waterfront. Last year, the event generated about $60 million in direct economic impact. Some analysis put the broader regional figure closer to $100 million. Either way, it's the largest annual event in Long Beach, and it has been for decades. But the race itself isn't the argument for real estate. What matters is what the Grand Prix proves about this city every April. Long Beach takes a stretch of downtown streets, turns them into a world-class motorsports venue, fills them with 200,000 people, and the city keeps running the entire time. Businesses along the circuit stay open during construction. The waterfront keeps operating. At the end of the weekend, it all comes back down. That's not a small thing. The 2028 Olympics are now less than 27 months away. Long Beach is confirmed to host 11 events, more than any venue city outside of LA. The venues span Alamitos Beach for beach volleyball, Marine Stadium for canoe sprints and rowing, the Convention Center for artistic swimming and water polo, Belmont Shore for coastal rowing and open water swimming. The city's spending $750 million on Elevate 28 infrastructure, improvements, including roads, parks, public facilities, transportation, all timed to be complete before the summer of 2028. 3 national hospitality houses have already been secured for the Games: Greece, Ireland, and Denmark. Long Beach is the first city in the region to lock in 3. Denmark is sailing its iconic 3-masted training ship, the Danmark, into Rainbow Harbor after a 6-month voyage from Europe via the Panama Canal. That's not what you'd expect from a secondary venue city. Every April, the Grand Prix makes the argument for Long Beach's waterfront in the most tangible way possible. People drive, fly, and book hotels to be here. Some of these 200,000 people have never been to Long Beach before. Some of them come back as buyers. Over 51 years, that pipeline's not nothing. For investors, the neighborhoods closest to the Grand Prix, the Olympics, and the waterfront build-out are the 90802 zip code properties. And what's happening with supply in that zip code is its own story. The Grand Prix tells you where the attention goes. The portico development tells you where the supply is going. Story 3, the downtown build-out. On January 30th, JPI broke ground on a $150 million mixed-use development called Portico at 450 The Promenade North in downtown Long Beach. 8 stories, 272 apartments ranging from studios to 3-bedroom units. 18,841 square feet of ground floor retail, a speakeasy, a rooftop deck, a golf simulator, and a pool deck. Delivery is scheduled for around mid-2028. This is phase 1 of a 900-unit master plan to redevelop the former City Place Long Beach site, now rebranded as the Mosaic Shopping Center. When all phases are complete, it is one of the largest single-site residential additions in downtown Long Beach's modern history. At the same time, the Long Beach Bowl Amphitheater near the Queen Mary is under construction. A 12,000-seat outdoor venue operated by ASM Global and Legends, designed to host up to 40 events per year, scheduled to be open in time for the Olympics. The English Village, the derelict Tudor-style shopping complex near the Queen Mary that had been sitting for years, was demolished in spring of 2025. That cleared 11 acres of prime waterfront for future development. Here's the part that matters if you own or if you want to buy a 90802. The portico units are rentals, not for sale condos. The direct competition isn't for buyers, it's for the rental pool. When 272 high amenity rental units open in mid-2028, followed eventually by 628 more units in subsequent phases, that is a meaningful addition to downtown rental supply in a zip code where existing inventory along Ocean Boulevard is already establishing pricing expectations. If you own or are looking at a condo downtown for rental income, pay attention. More rental supply generally pushes achievable rents down. If your investment thesis depends on sustaining $3,400 a month on a one-bedroom, you need to think through what Portico opens at in 2028 with its amenity package competing for the same tenant. But the buyer who wants to own downtown for personal use, that's a different conversation. The amphitheater, the Olympic venues, the waterfront, those are durable lifestyle drivers that don't go away when Portico opens. A well-positioned condo with views, parking, and access to the waterfront is a distinct asset class from a rental unit in a new tower, regardless of how nice that tower is. The people buying in Virginia Country Club or on Ocean Boulevard for owner occupancy aren't making the same calculation as a yield-focused investor. My read on 90802? Sophisticated micro market. If you're buying for lifestyle and long-term appreciation in a city that's hosting the Olympics and building its waterfront into a world-class entertainment corridor, the case is still there. If you're buying for near-term rental yield, you need to model what 900 units do to that math by 2029. Those are two different investments and they should be underwritten differently. Supply picture is clear. Now, the variable moving fastest right now, the one that's actually changing what buyers can do this spring. Story 4, the rate reversal. In late February, the 30-year fixed rate briefly dipped below 6% for the first time since 2022. That was a real moment. Pre-approvals moved. Open house traffic picked up. For about 2 weeks, it looked like spring 2026 was going to be the season that finally broke the rate lock paralysis. Then oil prices spiked. The conflict in the Middle East escalated. Inflation expectations moved up. The Fed held its benchmark rate steady at its last 2 consecutive meetings, signaling that it's not cutting anytime soon with inflation still above 2% target in oil prices, adding new upward pressure. Mortgage rates climbed 4 consecutive weeks. As of March 26th, Freddie Mac put the 30-year fixed at 6.38%, the highest since September of 2025. Some daily trackers had it as high as 6.55 in the days immediately following. The mortgage reports had it at 6.42 going into the last weekend of March. That's a real swing from 5.98% in late February. A buyer running the math on a $750,000 loan at 5.98% was looking at roughly $4,492 a month in principal and interest. At 6.42%, that same loan is closer to $4,697. That's $205 more a month. Over a year, close to $2,500 more. Not catastrophic, but real. And it compounds on top of Long Beach prices that are still up 6.4% year over year. Zillow's chief economist said in late March that the rate environment had already erased about a third of the year-over-year affordability gains buyers had accumulated. He flagged that the impact on the broader spring market depends on how long elevated rates persist. Brief spike tied to geopolitical volatility that resolves in 60 days, the spring market may catch up in May and June. But if it runs through the summer, some of that demand gets deferred again, and that would be a repeat of the pattern buyers have already lived through for 2 years. For Long Beach, this hits both sides. For buyers, you need updated pre-approval math. The February window is gone. If you ran numbers at 5.9% and made peace with a payment based on that, those numbers are wrong today. Know what your ceiling is at 6.4% before you're standing in a living room making a decision. Your purchasing power has contracted. That's not a reason not to buy, but it is a reason to be precise. For sellers, if you priced for February's rate environment, you may be ahead of where buyers are actually today. This is why the 47% price reduction number I'll cover in a moment isn't random. It's the data trail of sellers who listed as if it were still February and didn't adjust. In a market where buyers have already contracted affordability and are more selective, every week of overpricing costs you negotiating leverage that doesn't come back. That's the rate picture. Now, let's look at what's actually happening on the ground. Story 5, the data. Redfin's February numbers for Long Beach. Median sales price at $825,000, up 6.4% year over year. Average days on market at 59, exactly flat from a year ago. 171 homes sold in February, essentially unchanged from last February. And the share of active listings with price reductions is sitting at nearly 47%. The headline, appreciation is real, the market's not falling, and sellers are fighting hard to get there. Nearly half of active listings in Long Beach are taking a price reduction before they sell. That number was under 39% a year ago. That 8-point jump tells you something specific. The market's not collapsing. Sellers are anchoring to where they think prices should be based on peak comp data. And buyers in the current rate environment, they're not following them there. The gap between what sellers want and what buyers will pay has widened. That gap, that's where negotiating room lives, if you know which properties are sitting and why. The zip code level data is where it gets precise. In 90807, which covers California Heights, Los Cerritos, and the Wrigley Corridor, the Market Action Index sits at 54, up from 50 the previous month. Demand is significantly outpacing supply in that zip code. The median list price in 90807 is over $1.3 million. And homes in the fastest moving price band, around $1.05 million, are selling in as few as 7 days. 7 days. In a market where the citywide average is 59 days. That's not a buyer's market. If you want to be in California Heights at the right price, you are competing and you need to be ready. Pre-approved, not just pre-qualified. Clear on what you will and what you won't do on contingencies. When the right house comes up in that corridor at the right price, the data says it'll be gone in a week. Meanwhile, homes at the upper end of 90807, above 1.5 million, are averaging over 100 days on market. Same zip code, completely different dynamic. This is the split reality of Long Beach that national headlines miss entirely. In the coastal corridors, Belmont Shore, Naples Island, Belmont Heights, the premium remains. Those neighborhoods hold because the lifestyle pull doesn't care what rates are doing. Buyers there tend to have equity from a prior sale or more liquidity. They're less rate sensitive than a first-time buyer in Wrigley. That market moves on its own terms, and it always has. For investors, the Anduril campus is under construction. Voyager Technologies is operational on Conant Street. The Space Beach corridor, it's not a concept anymore. It's building permits and construction crews. The neighborhoods within a reasonable commute of the airport corridor, California Heights, Los Cerritos, Lakewood Village, Signal Hill, the Plaza, those are the ones where the employment pipeline will show up in rental demand first before it shows up in sales prices. The window is still open through at least mid-2027. The buyer who understands that rate noise and tariff uncertainty are headwinds, but not the whole story, they tend to be the ones who look smart 2 years from now. The investor watching at the zip code level instead of reading the citywide median, that's where opportunities are that everyone else misses. 5 stories. All of them point to the same tension. Long Beach's structural story gets stronger every month. Billion-dollar defense tech campus going up. Olympics 27 months out. A waterfront amphitheater under construction. A $150 million mixed-use development breaking ground downtown. 200,000 people about to pour into the city for a race that's been making the argument for this waterfront for 51 years straight. And at the same time, the near-term picture for buyers is harder than it was 6 weeks ago. Rates reversed. The tariff situation changed legal statuses, but didn't change the uncertainty that logistics businesses in the city are operating under. And 47% of sellers are learning the hard way that in this market, April 2026 rewards accurate pricing and punishes wishful thinking. Long Beach rewards people who come prepared. If you're still researching and want to understand what's exactly happening neighborhood by neighborhood, the free Long Beach guide is in the description. Real data, current market, no noise. If you're ready to talk about a specific situation, whether that's timing a sale, figuring out which neighborhoods pencil for an investment, or understanding what your purchasing power actually looks like at today's rates, reach out directly. My contact info is in the description, and I personally respond. Hit subscribe. Real numbers, real market, no noise. I'll see you in the next one.